Hey everyone, Mike here, and this time I'm doing another basing video. This time it'll be a crystal cave base. I plan to do this with some of my Blackstone Fortress minis, but this certainly could be used with any cave or subterranean theme. I'm going to show you two ways to make the crystals for the base. The first of which is using pre-made crystals. I got these from Green Stuff World, and I'll post a link in the description if you're interested in picking some of these up. As you can see, they come in a variety of shapes and sizes, though you do need to sand down the bottoms of them to make them sit flat on your base. Another way is to make your own crystals using bits of sprue. If your sprue is squarish, like most of the game's workshop sprues, you can cut this up and make your own crystals. I actually got this idea from a patron on Patreon. I saw he had some cool looking rocks on one of his bases, and this is what he said he had used. So if you're watching this, thanks a lot, Randy. So once I've chosen or created the crystals I want, I'm gluing them into place along with any other debris, rocks, or skulls that I want on there. I have two of the Green Stuff World crystals, one crystal made from sprue, and a single skull. After those are glued in place, I'm just adding a bit of texture paste to the base. This one is Astro Granite from Games Workshop. Now one thing I should have done first was to fill in the gap in the center, unless you're planning on directly inserting a Games Workshop mini into that slot. I'm going to fill it in for now, for the purposes of this video, and when I use the base later, I'll just pin the miniature in place. Next, prime the base in black and then choose three colors that you want for your crystals. Mine are going to be a bluish green, though you can use any color that you want, such as purple, red, green, or a pure blue. All that matters is that you have a dark, middle, and light shade of the color that you choose. If you don't have a black primer, all that matters is that you start by painting your crystals black. Next, lay out the three colors you chose on whatever palette you're using. Using these three colors, I'm going to mix two intermediate colors as well, using a 1:1 ratio of the dark and middle color, and a 1:1 ratio of the middle and light color. I'm starting with the darkest color, and I'm completely covering all of the crystals. This entire process is going to require 8 layers of paint, and that may seem like a lot, but it's actually very fast and requires almost no accuracy whatsoever. I painted all of these crystals in less than 20 minutes. After each one is painted, I'm then using the darkest paint once again, and I'm moving about 1/10 of the way down the crystal and painting on the second layer. Each layer is going to be about 10% further down the crystal than the previous one. And here's how the crystals look after the first 2 layers of paint. Now I'm doing the exact same thing with the second darkest color. Go just below the previous layer and paint on a glaze of this color. Once all of the crystals are done, give it about 1 minute to dry and then go slightly further down and paint on a second layer of the same color. Here's the crystals after 4 layers, and they're already looking kind of translucent. Now I'm using the middle color, and same as before, I'm adding 2 layers of this to each crystal. I'm around halfway down the crystal now and getting close to the bottom with these layers. Once in a while, you might have to go back to one of the previous colors just to smooth out your color transitions. I did this once on the biggest crystal because I thought the color change was a little too harsh between 2 of the layers. You can likely see that I'm just using a cheap plastic brush for this that's completely frayed at the tip. It's almost like adding a wash. You don't need any real precision for this part. The final layers on the crystals are done with the second lightest color. The lightest color is reserved for the edge highlight. Here are the crystals with all 8 layers on, and the last step is the edge highlight, which really completes the illusion that these crystals are translucent. To do the edge highlight, I'm using the brightest color, thinned down the same as the other colors, but you want just a tiny amount on the brush. Wipe off the excess and then just lightly drag the edge of the brush along the edges of the crystals. With too much of this paint, it'll smear or run, or your edge highlight will look too thick. The crystal I'm edge highlighting right here is actually the piece of sprue that I cut. And that's it for the crystals, so next I'm going to finish off the base in the style that I've done with my other Blackstone bases. First, I'm going to create a bit of glow around the bottom of the crystals by using the second darkest color around the base. And then a bit further out, I'm going to use the darkest color. Next, I'm base coating the skull I added with a layer of Celestra gray, and then I'm going to follow that up with a layer of Ulthuan gray. Next, I'm adding a layer of Nuln oil for the shade color, and then using a damp brush to remove the excess from the top of the skull. I'll then follow that with a quick touch-up with the Ulthuan gray on the top of the skull and around the facial bones. The dirt and debris that I added are getting 2 layers of dry brushing. The first layer will be with the Incubi darkness, and the second with Sotek green. And since this is a dry brush, these colors are coming straight from the paint pot. Next, I'm going to create some glowing lines of energy like you see on the tiles of the Blackstone Fortress floors. I'm going back to the 5 colors on my wet palette for this. First, I'm marking out where I want the lines to go with my thinned down Sotek green, or my middle color. Then I'm going to the brightest color, which is Temple Guard blue, and making very thin lines with this. After that, I'm just using small amounts of the Sotek green to create a bit of glow around the lines, and then I'll follow that up with the Incubi darkness a bit further out, just like I did with the crystals. The final thing to do is to add a bit of blue glow on the skull. I'm first dry brushing with a bit of the Sotek green. I have a very small amount of paint on my brush and I'm going very slowly so not to overdo it. And then I'll do the same thing with Temple Guard blue. All that's left is to get some pure black and touch up around the base and under the skull. Thank you very much to all my patrons for supporting these videos, and special thanks to Brian Jones for sponsoring the channel. If you want to see more basing videos, let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this one, and thanks for watching.